First of all, if you're going to set up a program, here are the things that are really important, because if you don't do them, you're liable to fail. So this is real practical stuff. Okay. First of all, you have to be concerned with program demographics. And I should say that as I go on and you want more information, you can email me or you can email Dr. Carlos and he will look after your needs, okay? It really is important that if you set up a program, you have a champion. Someone that believes in what you're doing and will help your agenda. We had that. We had a deputy minister and a regional director that felt that what Don Andrews and I were doing was absolutely critical and supported us and helped deal with some of the gremlins in the system. Don, some of the gremlins, the Darth Vaders in the academic area, and we, the Darth Vaders in government. So that is one thing. So who sponsors what you do is really very, very crucial. The next thing, keep it small. When you see failures in program development and implementation of programs in our area, it's because they want to do it all. You know what politicians are like. So when you take a look at some things that happen in New Zealand and in Great Britain, everybody's going to do this. You know, everybody in the whole damn country. No. If you're going to implement new ideas, start small. Do a pilot project. Get all the bugs out of the system. Deal with a small group of people. So everybody is on base with what you're doing. And when you have problems, you can rectify them quickly. So take an incremental approach. So if you're working in the correctional system and, oh, I'll just guess here, Chile, you could say, everybody's going to use R&R across Chile. Oh, no, please don't do that. Let's just take one institution or one unit within an institution and get our act together and get it running. And then if it works, then we can develop it in further once we got our act together. All right. Then another important thing that doesn't come across as a risk in the literature, but is important because it correlates with successful programs, is the organizational culture. Don't beat your head against the wall. Start out with an organization that documents its goals and mandates, that they in fact know what they're doing, that they have an ethics of intervention, that in their history, they have responded to new initiatives, no matter what the heck they are, in a timely manner. That when they've dealt with issues, they've tended to solve them. That there is some harmony in the organization. That the staff turnover is about 70%, there's a small staff turnover of about 30%. That the organization shares information. That the organization has shown a history of evaluating what they've done in the past, whether it's getting the food line working or goodness knows, or getting out medications to the offenders or whatever, that they tend to evaluate and think about what they do. And finally, and this is crucial because we write about this all the time, is that if you're going to set up a program, you get, if you're using a researcher or a consultant of some sort, that they stay with you. One of the real problems I find is that when, and I've done this too, and I've made this mistake. We are a world full of consultants. They drop in at a very heavy fee, and I've been happy to collect a fee as well, give people the training, and then you leave and never come back again. And then the organization of founders. So, you know, it's like having, if I was having in a jazz band, and the leader of the band who wrote all the music and stuff says, well, we're playing it right, and leaves, what do we do? I mean, that's not a very good analogy. So you have to have the individual who is really has the knowledge, has the experience, and stays with you. It's like when you're dealing with an organization, they're learning a new skill. I'm a good golfer. I can go and tell you how to hit wedge shots out of a bunker. And then if I don't stay with you and monitor you carefully and see that you repeat and do things with my guidance, you're going to lose that skill. And so it's the same kind of analogy. It's called the researcher involvement kind of thing. The next aspect is we never talk about program implementation, but that has a high correlation with program success. And it's one of the forgotten issues, and we wrote about it way back in 1999. And it was the first time, and now people are much more aware of it. But if you're going to put a program into place, you have to be concerned with the context, that the organization you're dealing with is not bogged down in a bunch of contentious issues. I mean, the tendency is always to see oneself as a savior. That place is a mess. Everything is disorganized. We're going to go in and voila, we're going to rescue it with our magic formula of the principles of effective intervention. Well, I'm afraid to say you have to pick your spots if you want some success. And you have to take ones that have a context that they have that is fairly solid. You got to make sure that the kind of program you're dealing with is congruent with existing stakeholder values. Don and I have published many years ago our attempts at implementing programs, and we failed. Even though we had a lot of influence and our reputations were fairly big at the time, which is long ago, we failed in getting programs sorted out because we ignored the fact that our values did not fit the current stakeholders' values within the prison or the probation center. You have to see who is funding the program and whether they have deep pockets and whether that's going to exist. Got to be very, very wary of contractual kinds of factors. You have to hopefully have an organization where you can be allowed pilot trials, so you can sort of get the kinks out and get things organized. You have to, I think, deal with organizations that have been in operation for a while, that they have adequate staffing levels, and that they have some professional qualifications. Another aspect, management characteristics. This is really important because if you're going to put a program into an organization, you have to make sure that the director has appropriate qualifications. You wouldn't believe how many times you see treatment programs or organizations where the head of the program or the person in charge of the program does not have any professional qualifications of any substance that are related to what you're trying to do. You also have to have, here I have an anti-administrator bias at times, even though I was an administrator for years. Maybe I don't like myself at times, I don't know. But you have to deal with directors. This is what I publish and call the fart catcher syndrome, but that's another topic. And it's a legitimate word, by the way. I'm not trying to be scatological, but that the director has an intimate knowledge of the agency and the staff and knows the inmates. You have to have a director that has had previous experience working in the field, that they select and train the staff. Oh, and here's the next one. How often have I seen in programs, you're the director of the program? Oh, that's wonderful. By the way, do you ever see any inmates yourself? Do you have a caseload? Do you know what the heck your clientele are like? Or you're just sitting pushing paper in your desk and giving orders to someone else to do it? That sort of stuff. So the director has to be the change agent. You have to have a staff where I would argue at least 3/4 have a undergraduate degree, maybe 10% an advanced degree in terms of providing the service. That they have training in areas in psychology and specifically really, but maybe in other areas where they could be nursing and other aspects where they have some course content knowledge of what you're trying to do. And at least 3/4 working in a program with offenders for at least a couple of years. The other factor is that when you're selecting staff, and this is so crucial, is that you have to select staff who have relationship skills, that they are enthusiastic, they're warm, they're respectful, and so on and so forth. Now, when you go through all these qualifications, you might think, my God, am I hiring Jesus Christ superstar? But you have to have people who are empathic, that respect other people, and are genuine, and so on and so forth. That they have to have skills that are directive, they're structured in their approach, and so on and so forth. You have to have a situation where the staff are checked and given opportunity to revise or increase their clinical skills once a year. And you also have to have a situation where staff can make changes to the program. Because if I come in and try to get a program going, so-called, I say, do this, do that, and I'm supposed to be the guru, well, there could be situations where I'm entirely wrong or misled about certain things. The staff have to have the ability to say, no, I think we should do it this way, and so on and so forth, and you come to a respectful relationship. And you have to have a belief that change is possible with offenders, that they can change their ways. So these are some of the implementation aspects that are really crucial. Now, when it comes to assessment, here's the other important aspect. Now, that's one of the major principles that people know about, but that you should be assessing your offenders on some kind of risk assessment protocol. But it should be a valid instrument, not some ma and pa outfit or thing that you've found in the basement or something like that. A risk measure that has valid predictive validities. And the risk measure should be dynamic. That is, it has a number of items in it that tap into the issues involving a particular offender, and it can show change over time, your attitudes and values. Even now in the US, we see a movement towards having these big data kind of measures, which are full of static measures, previous convictions, so on and so forth, things that can't change with an offender. You could give this a thing to an offender 100 times, but the score isn't going to change because there are a bunch of historical items. Now, true, historical items are good predictors of criminal behavior, but you have to have dynamic aspects to it, attitudes and values that are predictive of offender behavior. And it's amazing how few places have good dynamic assessment. It's almost like, and this goes back to an early debate, that offenders are incapable of change. Are they and this is a part of our early paper with Bob Ross on bibliotherapy for cynics, that somehow some people believed, and it was in criminology, by the way, and it was in some other areas, whereby offenders were some peculiar beast that were not able to change their behavior. But surely they can, all people can. And so you have to also make assessments in terms of what we call specific responsivity, in that some offenders they're not all the same, and they will respond differently to various aspects. So the thing of ethnicity, possibly gender, well, certainly gender, IQ, motivation, and all those factors, you have to take that into account when you're dealing with offender and teaching them pro-social skills. And there's ways of measuring that and providing some benefits. You should also have staff assigned to a program because you have to match them with the program. Some staff members may be more involved and would feel more comfortable dealing with verbal kinds of interactions. Others may be more concrete oriented. They might work more in a highly structured environment. They might work better with token economies. I'm not too sure how familiar people are with token economies and that sort of stuff and that kind of thing. So not only do you have to respect the offender in terms of who she or he is and what some of their differences are, but also with the staff. So, you know, all of you can remember back to teachers who had an influence in your life and ones who didn't. And the ones who had an influence in your life is because they were a good fit in their personal style with you and could motivate you. And so we have to take into account and respect the staff and their individual differences along with the individual differences that you'll find with offenders. Another thing too, and this one is concerned, is that if you're dealing with offenders, and this comes in to be very important to later questions here, if you're dealing with offenders, it's important that you measure change. Oh my goodness. It's still going on. I can just think of something recent here in my own backyard, and getting people to put into place measures of change an offender has over their period of incarceration, or whether they're on probation or parole, is so important. But we know when we assess offenders, it usually sometimes at the beginning, and then maybe 2 years later, 10 years later, I don't know. But you have to, it's important to assess people periodically, every 4 months, 6 months, to see whether they're going up or down in terms of their attitudes and values.